What is going on, Movie Meals? Movie Meals, we've got our ties. I may have tied this very quickly and very poorly. We really got some excess here. I do know how to tie a tie, but just quick. Thank you, my patrons, Kimberly, Karen. Go get some merch. Guys, we are about 90-something subscribers away from reaching 2,000. That would be so cool. Kyle and I don't have goals, really, with this channel. We just like talking movies, but it would be very cool to reach that 2,000. So we're going to give a random fan one of these awesome Movie Meal hoodies that we have in our merch line when we reach 2,000. So share us around, comment. We're going to pick fans that comment all the time, that, doing stuff like that, have been engaged, because we do have a small little fan base. It's been really nice, really wonderful. So you can get this awesome Movie Meals hoodie. We'll contact you when that happens, but share us around and comment. That'll really help when we reach that 200 mark. So, but we're here for Succession. We're talking television here. Succession's been a show on for a while. It's a show I've adored. It's a show Kyle at the very end was like, wait, I'm not invited to this party? I better watch the whole thing. And then he just watched the whole thing in a weekend, ignored everything else he was supposed to do, and caught up. And then he was like, I've been here since day one. What phenomenal television. And it's like, calm the hell down, pal. Anyway, Succession, let's try to avoid spoilers. If we do go into spoilers, we'll throw a spoiler notice right in front of that moment. But let's get into it. Positives and negatives don't really matter, I think, here. Kyle, just tell me what you loved about the show and things you didn't like, and we'll just go from there. This season. Show as a whole, this season altogether. Anyway, go ahead.
Right. Well, as Alex did say, I was very, very, very late to the party. I kept hearing some. I know. I need to listen to Alex more. That's what Alex says. What my therapist says.
No, I'm done. No more show recommendations for me.
I've given him too many chances, and I ruined it every time.
Yep.
But yeah, this like Breaking Bad. This is one of those situations where I came in very late, and I wish I could have been part of the party a little bit more, but I still ended up really, really enjoying this show. I'm weird, as you can already tell, when it comes to television. Like, I just have a hard time, like, staying to a show all the way through, or, there's shows where I come home from work and I'd rather watch this to take my mind off things rather than, like, really concentrate on something like a Succession, for example. But just from episode 1, I just was instantly hooked. Like, for some reason, I didn't quite expect this to be, like, right up my alley, but just with the way, right from the get-go, the show's just able to give you an understanding of what this is about, and it's just about a show not only in terms of seeing these corporate, these really high-up corporate people trying to duke it out within the family to see who's going to run this corporation, but it also does a really good job at being complicated character studies of complicated people. In a way, it almost humanizes, those faceless head honchos that we think of when it comes to these big corporate studio types, but it does it in a way to where you're still conflicted and you still enjoy them in ways you probably shouldn't enjoy them, but also just in ways where you're still are able to be angry with them at the same time, but also have just that little smidge of compassion where you hope that they end up becoming good people, even though you clearly can tell it's just never going to go that way. But you understand why they're the types of people that they are. So what I'm just trying to get at is that the show does a really great job at making the corporate stuff very interesting, but also making the complicated human parts of people working in, a business such as their own in such interesting, fascinating ways. And that's just not only from the terrific writing of this show, but also just with the terrific cast all the way through, such as the likes of, Jeremy Strong, Brian Cox, their Snook. They all were able to just be phenomenal the whole way through. Matthew McFadden, he plays Tom, one of my favorite characters easily on that show, but they just are able to take such a great meaty script and able to just make it so interesting in terms of the characters. So I'll let Alex take the wheel a little bit more, but obviously I just fell in love with this show easily.
I can't believe you don't even mention our boy. Now I'm.
Do you remember?
Names. Kieran Culkin. Did you say Kieran Culkin?
No, but I'm glad you did, because, I mean, season
phenomenal.
4 alone, my god. Yeah, he kills it.
Yeah, no, I've been a fan of the show all at once, and to be honest, Kyle's gonna have a different perspective on the show than me, just because he binged it. The binge format's gonna change your perspective of a show, because I think season 3 is the weakest. That's what I remember. I do want to sit down and rewatch the whole thing, but I remember thinking season 3 was weaker. I liked season 3, but I was starting to not love some of the decisions and storylines we ended up going with in season 3. And I think the writers agreed. And I think they said it's time to end this show. And I think which is a sign of great writing. When you can say, okay, and I don't believe Succession even has a bad episode. And when you get to those hour and a half long episodes, there's going to be decisions and things within that episode you don't like. But you're not going to have a bad episode. It's hard at that level to get a bad, boring, episode that does a lot of things you don't like when your episode's so long. It's like a movie. You can find good things in a bad movie. And the movie has to be very bad for you to, everything's got to be just god-awful for you to hate the whole thing from start to finish. But so going into season 4, I wasn't really sure what I was expecting. And I loved it. I loved all the decisions that were made for the most part. I do think, and I am going to do a spoiler here, so spoiler warning for this point if you have not finished Succession. This happens in the middle of the season, but I do think it was very interesting to kill off Brian Cox and Logan Roy more towards the middle point, a little after. It was like episode 6. I think that's an interesting decision. I think that worked fine enough, but I do think we ended up getting at least a 2-episode repeat of Dad's gone, what are we doing? Dad's gone, do we want to take the power play? Dad's gone. They kind of teased that for a minute. That's the only point in this season that I thought was the lowest. Like we were having a tough time figuring out what to do there. And even Brian Cox was like, I think they killed me off too early. But he also, I just think, loved being on the show. He's great. I mean, he's on every McDonald's ad. I love that. But I did think this season was a huge success. I don't know if it's my favorite. I think season 1 probably is still my favorite. You don't get many television shows where your first season's your favorite. I can think of 2 right now: Succession, Community. Those are about it. So that alone shows how strong these writers have been. The cast is phenomenal. Even Kieran Culkin talking about on the roundtable that Kyle and I discussed on our podcast that will come out tomorrow from when we're filming this. I don't know when this will be posted, but on Thursday, he talked about how he didn't know what he wanted to do next because he got so much freedom on this show. They really got to be them as actors and really dive into the meat of the scripts. So, and that translates through the show. The show in all that response is phenomenal. The finale is one of the best finales I've ever seen in how they were able to wrap up, remind you who these characters really are, yet they still had growth in certain ways, yet they still defaulted on things you didn't want them to, or they did. The power play still went in a direction I didn't fully expect. And that's what the show's been doing from start to finish. The first episode of the show is Jeremy Strong going, I'm going to become CEO of this company, and Dad saying at the last second, no, you're not. And it's just another move and another power play. I loved it. I loved the imagery, the cinematography. At the end, they were making callbacks to things that they have done that I thought were phenomenal. Things that you see in the intro. Another spoiler here, but just even the shot of Kendall back perfectly in center looking at the water. I mean, that's what they end their opener with every time, is his dad at the head of the table. And it's the same shot at the head of the table, and I loved it. Oh, the things they do in this show, it was beautiful. This is a phenomenal show. It's one of the best shows out there. Highly recommend. Any other thoughts, Kyle?
No, I completely agree. It's certainly a show that is such a huge achievement, and we need to give props, especially currently with the writer strike going on. We need to give big props to Jesse Armstrong and his writing team, because it's just so satisfying to see such a firm understanding of the show and the goals of a show all the way through. And you can just tell that, kind of like what you were saying, they understood the characters, they had some growth, but at the same time, they had their default moments, because that's just how they grew up and they were accustomed, but it's within the understanding of the family dynamics, the family power struggle, that you understand why that is. And I think that was just some of my favorite parts of the show, is just that underlying growth, but yet the power struggle and the hold of the Roy family that just caused them to have defaults to where it just made them such interesting, fascinating characters. And even though the corporate speak, a lot of it, it goes over my head. I'm a big dum-dum that way, but it still is just such interesting stuff to listen to, and you're just so invested. So, yeah, fantastic show, like you were saying. Despite us having different ways of viewing it, it just works terrifically, I think, no matter how you view it. So, just a very, very well done show. Highly recommend.
What's so great, too, is the corporate speak. At one point, they're going to be talking things, and you're like, wait a minute, what? Like, if you're not a finance guy, you're just kind of like, what? And then all of a sudden, it's just swear word, swear word, swear word, and then it's like, they'll say things like, oh, is this a play? Are you playing me here? Is this a bit? What are you doing? And it's like, oh, now, it's either high society or bottom, and the way they are able to write that is, and then perform it, is just phenomenal. It's just amazing. This show... I mean, really, we've talked about it before. I know you're not a big Game of Thrones guy, but we've talked about how HBO, Warner Brothers, they kind of lost that big thing. And Game of Thrones ended, regardless of what you think of the ending, it was a massive where were you show. Where were you when this episode dropped? What were you doing? It still is in the conversation with that today. All the time. Succession has quietly been one of the top shows in terms of ratings and popularity that we just don't talk about that often. It's always trending when an episode drops, while a good couple days after it drops. I have people all the time bringing it up to me, and it is one of those great shows that really passed the streaming market, because there's so many great shows on streaming markets that some of them don't make it out. Like, I was talking about the greatness of a show on Apple TV with Severance just the other day, and people were like, no, I only watched Ted Lasso. And it's like, well, of course, Ted Lasso's amazing, but Severance is also that freaking good, and no one's watching it. And Succession has been able to do that since the start, and I love that. There's House of the Dragon kind of came back big, but with Succession, HBO and Warner Brothers are sitting there going, what else do we need here? What else can we do? I wonder if a couple years from now we start hearing Succession's back, they're going to keep it going, but... Anyway, I loved this show. I thought it was phenomenal. Guys, what did you think? Comment below, let us know. Remember to like, subscribe, and share. Don't forget, definitely do that share part. We're going to be picking somebody to get us 2,000. And as always, thanks for watching, Mom.
See you guys.